This is Tony Diaz, a libro traficante, author of The Tip of the Pyramid, Cultivating Community Cultural Capital. And we have an amazing show for you today. We're bringing you the Chicanx, the Chicano intelligentsia, the leaders, the provocateurs, that's me, and a wonderful legacy of our cultura that you can actually take home with you in the manifestation of art and cultura called Huizache. We're going to welcome a lot of folks right now. Before I tell you we're going to watch this, how you're going to watch this, how you can support this, I got to say hi to El Mero Mero of American Letters, the most down vato ever, and a giant in American Letters, mi amigo Dagoberto Gil. Dagoberto, it is fantastic to welcome you to Nuestra Palabra Latino Writers Heaven to Say during our 25th anniversary season. Thank you so much for all that you have done for all of us and for joining us today, brother.
Well, how are you doing, Tony's? Thank you. Hope I can do something well. I'll say whatever you want. Just talk to me.
You've been doing a lot of things well for a long time. Today, we're going to broadcast that. So folks are watching this first on social media, on the Nuestra Palabra Latino Writers Heaven to Say Facebook page. A version of this will be broadcast in a video form on fox26houston.com. The audio will be edited to air on 90.1 FM KPFT, Houston's community station. And I have to pause here and remind our listeners that we are on the air because of you. We're not inserting any commercials. And if we did, they probably wouldn't let us air anything about our community. So that's the trade-off. We hope that you can, in turn, make a donation to KPFT in the name of Nuestra Palabra Latino Writers Heaven to Say, so we can do our part to keep this amazing experiment in freedom of speech going on. You can go to kpft.org or go old school and call 713-526-5738. And of course, we are also on podcast. Today, we are celebrating the latest edition of the nation's leading literary journal. I want to say that first, and then mention that it happens to be a Chicano journal. We'll be talking to Maceo Montoya, who is the new editor, and he is out there in Califas. We'll be getting some awesome readings from some of the current contributors and past contributors. We've got Yajira Salvatierra waiting in the wings. She'll be on reading one of her pieces. Dear friend coming back to the show, Joe Reyes Boitel. And Vincent Cooper, another friend of ours. Roberto Ontiveros, another friend of ours. And of course, depending on when you're watching this, you either have attended or missed the pachanga that we're going to have at the Latino bookstore at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center celebrating Huizache. So if you missed it, si te le perdites, está bien, you're studying this in class, maybe you're sharing this with others. I hope you're with La Familia talking about our cultura. And you can still go to the Latino bookstore and find copies of Huizache, past issues. And of course, we always hope that you will be able to build your family library there. I do want to touch bases with Dagoberto Gil. He is, of course, one of the leading figures in American letters. He's been published in all the highfalutin magazines you can imagine. He's got amazing works out of the Legacy Grove Press, Woodcuts of Women, Gritos. The list goes on and on. Dagoberto, I'm always impressed, though, because you've got that long legacy of the hitting the upper echelon. But to me, you've always been involved in the community. You've done so much for different proteges. You put a lot of time and energy into Huizache. And now you're passing it from Texas to Califas. That was hard, though, no? I mean, Roberto wrote a piece in the Texas Observer talking about how Texas could not be a casa, could not be a home for Huizache. It's heartbreaking, brother. Tell us a little bit about that.
I don't know. You want to hear that stuff. It wasn't good. It's what's good is for all the turmoil that came from to UHV Central Victoria. I was executive director of Central Victoria. and they just went through a massive Trump change. And so guess who's out? Us. So, but I guess, I don't know what power is anymore, but I had the power to sort of maintain and the fortune of giving the magazine to somebody who, who would carry forward, in a state that was sort of more pro-Chicano, pro-history, not, treating us, like we had been for many, many decades and decades and decades previously. So, yeah, it's all good. Maceo is going to handle everything. And the magazine, will it be different because it's in Califas? I don't know. I don't think so. I think because we aren't. I have trouble. I've always had trouble distinguishing Texas. And I grew up in LA, El Paso. I lived in El Paso and then Austin. Chicanos here, Chicanos there. We're all Chicanos. What the heck is that?
Well, I'm not. I don't want to be the cultural border patrol, but there is one distinction. You mentioned that it's the Trump era that harbingered maybe the demise of some of our expression, freedom of speech, and let's go there because even as we're talking, you've got Republican Governor Abbott, who has now actually made it an issue to go after diversity, equity, and inclusion. He's going after tenure at University of Texas and Texas A&M. So even maybe the elimination of Huizache from Santa Victoria may have been a precursor to this larger movement where right now I'm talking to folks and they may be in diversity departments at universities and they're worried about it. And there's this trickle-down effect where even professors are worried about what they teach. So I think when you say that this was a sign of the way Texas at a governmental level was moving, that sounds spot on. And I want to add as well, too, that, and we don't have to dwell on this, but I do want to mention that, I got to remind people that during our lifetime, it was Republican legislators in Arizona that banned Mexican American studies. We all united to overturn that. This is a new approach to silence our community. And I want to call it censorship culture. So perhaps what you were saying is on point and playing out even more. I don't know what your thoughts are on that right now, Dagobert. Well, and then we can get to the art and literature after that.
It's a big subject. Clearly, we don't matter. We mattered for a while. Politically, we mattered. And now, not so much. And Texas is going through an incredible transformation, as you see. The state legislature is, it's not quite Trump, but damn, you can't get a lot closer. I'm being sued by the Attorney General. I'm fighting a lawsuit, and I've been fighting the lawsuit for, God, I almost want to think about it. Is it 7 years?
Wow.
I'm still in the lawsuit. So, and that's for, job discrimination. And so, yeah, it's hard to talk about this in a small format, but there is definitely the entire trend. Post-pandemic, people have gotten, caring about themselves more, and we historically, as poor people in this country, we don't make a lot of noise. We don't have a lot of power. We don't have. The simple fact is we don't have money, and so we don't have major movie stars. We don't have major newscasters. The country has really just gone back to its old ways where power and money are very closely connected, and no power and no money are equally connected, and we know which one's going up and which one's going down. We are going down. I could talk about it in terms of New York. We don't some of it is good. The Latinoization of all of us is good in a certain respect, but in New York, the East Coast, Chicanos, they don't even really know the word Chicano anymore. You go, let me not talk me, but you go to the offices of agents, and if they have one Latino in their offices, it's pretty remarkable. And we're talking about like offices of 30 to 40 to 50. There may be one Latino, maybe, most likely not. And there may be one, Black person. And they don't know we exist. It's very much like it was back in the 70s. I remember the 70s. So to me, it was, hey, look, we don't have any stories. We are like, what a market we are. We have all kinds of stories to tell. I mean, here we are. The only story they're interested in about us is the either liberal or the conservative take on us as immigrants. Now, you're not an immigrant. I'm not an immigrant. My mother was an immigrant. This is part of us, but it isn't the only us. But to them, that's the only us that they know about. So when they read us, that's the only thing they're looking for. And it's back to the fields. That's where we're at now.
You know what,
That's
though?
horrible. I'm sorry. I don't like talking like that. Let's talk about Maceo.
Well, this is a good segue, because I want people to understand how important this journal is. I don't want them to think that they can take this for granted. I want them to know deep in their hearts it can go away, and there are people that want it to go away. And I'll transition now. I'm going to bring it back to the art. I don't want to depress everybody. I want them to feel empowered. I'm not playing here. I'm not playing here because we've got receipts that we have been banned by entire states. Having said that, let's turn away from the corporate New York publishing world, where people who are illiterate about Latinos make decisions about community, and let's take it to where then you are helping to keep Huizache in this new era, and you're seeking political asylum for Huizache in Califas, and they extended it. And Aja is a whole different ball game outside of the state structure where they're erasing things. So I do want to segue to that, and we're going to bring folks on. Dagoberto,
let me say one thing about this.
Dígame, say it.
One positive thing that we have to be responsible for, and that is by Huizache. The only way that we look like we are a market is if we make this magazine seem as big as it is. I mean, I know we all love to see our poetry or our fiction or nonfiction be published. And, we all have these feelings. Oh, I wish, how come she's getting in? How come he's getting, I want to be in. But even when you're not by the magazine, and then editors, publishers, they see us buying that us. We go to our movies, they say, hey, they have a market. Right now, as long as if we don't have a market, they don't see market, because they're looking at coin. They want money. Believe me, this conversation has come up in my career for 30 years. Money. Where do we put this? And what my answer? Huizache. Look at the good work we do. We don't do just one of these things. We have like 50 identities, and they're all good, and we like to read it. We read our magazine. You want us, you buy our magazine. Huizache is good. Huizache is really a good magazine.
That's fantastic. And you've brought that keen eye, that high level of aesthetics to it. Imparting, thank you for all that you've done, Dagoberto. Your stories have fired us up, kept us going. I will close by reminding folks that Dagoberto just told us the state of Texas is suing the godfather of Chicano literature. What is up with that? Pero I start, Dagoberto, any parting words?
Tell me, help, I'm drowning.
Thank you so much, Dagoberto, for all you've done. Thanks for being on the show. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Tony.
Gracias.
Tony, for doing the show, man. You're a good dude.
Appreciate that, mano. On that note, we want to bring in the new era of Huizache. Hey, Maceo Montoya. We're going to introduce some of the folks that we have in the wings, and you are the new era. So gracias for taking this on. But before we do that, I do want people to understand that, in my opinion, Huizache is a beautiful, organic, growing definition of what it means to be Chicano. Tell us a little about yourself, because you are Chicano. You're Chicano pedigree, brother.
That's right. Thank you, Tony, for having me on the show and for featuring Huizache. I do. I come from a family of artists and activists. My uncle, Jose Montoya, one of his early important poems, El Louis, kind of using Spanglish, and also Caló, an artist, a musician. My dad, Malaquias Montoya, and then my brother Andres Montoya. So you just kind of go down the line, and there's artists everywhere you look, and really tracing their roots to the Chicano movement. My dad, my uncle. The movement not only kind of gave them their humanity, but gave them their voices as artists. So where one began and the other ended, they were just always kind of intertwined. Their creative voices and their voices as activists and just cultural contributors.
That's fantastic. And let me ask you this: with that legacy, you know so much about our community, and you've had a fantastic stellar career on your own too. Typically, the approach is to just write your own work. Why have you decided to give your time, energy, education capital, intellectual capital to work on this magazine?
It's a good question, because when I look back, I guess the legacy of my father and my uncle, for them, it was never enough just to be an artist, right? They also had to be activists. They also were involved politically. They were also educators. And I think when I was younger, I wanted to push against that, because I know how long it takes to make a series of paintings, to write a novel. And I wanted to be dedicated to the craft. And here I was, I'm a visual artist and a writer. And I wanted to be in the studio and at my desk writing, and thought that was enough. And I think for many it is, but you get to a point, I think, in your career, and I'm sure this was the case with Dago, where you look around you and you see what you can contribute, and you can make a decision not to, or you decide, no, let me weigh in, let me use my efforts to raise other people's voices, because you know how difficult it was to get published, to get your work exhibited. When I work with my students in the classroom, I know how transformative a space that can be, where they discover their voice, and you want to replicate that. You want to create other transformative spaces, and to me, that's what Huizache was. It created a community of writers, and some writers publishing for the very first time, and others who had these legendary careers, from writers like Gary Soto and Sandra Cisneros and Dagoberto Gilb and Juan Felipe Herrera, to like I said, writers publishing for the first time, who felt like they were entering into what is really a tradition, a tradition of Chicanx, Latinx letters, and they become part of it. But it was also, just the presentation, the attention to aesthetics. Dagoberto, I think, from the very beginning, had an eye to not necessarily his own kind of personal preferences, but just let me look for something that's different, work that kind of defies our expectations of Chicanx and Latinx literature. And there's such a diversity of writing that's published in Huizache, in all of its issues. And to kind of create that, right? Huizache plays an important role in kind of presenting those different sensibilities, those different aesthetics, and it does it in a beautiful way. I remember my very first story that was published in Huizache in the 4th issue, and the magazine arrived in the mail, and it just this kind of heavy issue full of wonderful writers, and the quality of the paper, the quality of the presentation, and it was really one of those moments that I look back on. that, you know, made me feel as if I had made it, as if I had become part of this literary community. And so back to your original question of, you know, why I would want to dedicate, you know, my time to doing this, it's to kind of create that experience and recreate that over and over, for the authors that we publish in this next issue and the issues into the future.
I love it. And that's a great point. And I'm going to have our producer, Roxana, bring in all our other guests as I ask you. You mentioned something. I mean, the content is powerful, but even the book. I mean, I love books, but you're right. Just touching the book, how it lays, it's a work of art in itself. Is that something you want to keep up? Because I imagine that's also expensive, no?
It is, and I think that there's this whole push, you know, other journals out there that have gone online, because the work could be published, it can be distributed, and it costs far less for it to be published online. But you know, I think that there is something. I mean, we're lovers of literature, we're lovers of book. We like to hold them in our hands, and there's something about the reading experience that I think that our work deserves that kind of presentation, and the kind of meaningful interaction that, you know, it requires to turn the pages and to spend time with the words on the page. And so I think that we will continue to find ways of publishing it in this book form, because we believe so much in the work and believe that it deserves that time and attention.
Fantastic. And we have our other guests joining us on screen. We'll be talking to them, and some of them will be in a reading. I do want to say hi to them. I want to mention to folks as well that Huizache will be part of the Texas Author Series at the Latino Bookstore at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. I'm very proud to be the literary curator there. So we will be having an in-person visit. Roberto Ontiveros will be joining us. Vincent Cooper will be joining us. Joe Reyes Boitel will be joining us. Of course, we're also joined today by Yahida, who'll be reading one of her pieces. But I do want to remind folks then that if you want to convene, you can always stop by the Latino Bookstore during business hours. And in the 2023 reading series, it's every second Friday of the month. And of course, now we have lesson plans for middle school, grammar school, and high school. We're looking forward to at some point possibly incorporating an issue of Huizache for those lesson plans. So I hope that you'll join all of us. But we're very happy that we'll be able to celebrate that. And I tell you what, Marcel, if you want to go around, I think Roberto, you were in an earlier issue. We want to talk to you too about the piece you wrote for Texas Observer. How about this, Marcel? Why don't you introduce our other friends? All of us are familiar, of course, and tell us what you liked about what you thought their work brought to this issue of Huizache. And then we're going to go to Roberto to talk about his take on what happened with Huizache, and of course, he being a contributor as well. And then after you introduce each person, maybe they could quickly say, hey, is it a big deal or not to be in Huizache? And how can this contribute to community? So take it away, Marcel.
Yeah, so yeah, this for the issue 9, the current issue. You know, Dagoberto and I worked together, and it was funny. Early on, Dagoberto told me that I read too much like a teacher. I was kind of rooting for everyone who submitted. You know, everyone that came through the submission platform, I was rooting for them. And Dagoberto was like, you know, no, you have to, you know, you have to read like an editor, which is, you know, being decisive and, you know, what stands out to you, what appeals to you. And Yahaira Salvatierra, her work was one of the first that came across, and I was just floored by it. Floored by the voice, floored by hers actually kind of like this, also like a visual textual poem. So the way that you read it on the page matters, and you know, just really stood out to me just for the voice alone. And then Joe Reyes Boitel, just the not only kind of the way the poem was crafted, but just how deeply personal it was. You know, you're always looking for a voice. You're looking for a voice that draws you in, that's telling you a story that you lose yourself in the moments, in the images that are being created. And so both just powerful examples. And then, Vincent's it was not in this issue, but, to kind of speak of the way that Huizache works and I guess the Latino literary community. Met Vincent years ago. I think it was at the San Antonio Book Festival, and he shared his work with me early on. And yeah, again, I was floored by his work, and it's been wonderful to see as his books have been published, and that we're all kind of part of this community of writers that are really rooting for one another and trying to support one another's work.
I love it. And of course, we invite other contributors to stop by for the pachanga. Hell, we'll make it an open mic if you want that. And I did want to hear from the three folks you mentioned. Yahira, is it a big deal to be in Huizache?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Yahaira.
Yahaira, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Forgive me, please, Yahaira.
Yes, it happens a lot. Yeah, it is. I know that for me, oh man, like what, 10, 11 years ago, I was starting to submit again, and Huizache was one of the magazines that I looked. I think somebody had suggested it, and I looked into, and I really loved to see like the voices that I was searching for, because I was looking for books, right, with certain voices, and so this magazine meant a lot to me. And then since then, I've sent work and been published a couple more times. So it is really important because it has a lot of the voices and different, right, like histories within our communities that comes through, which is really important. Not just like not just one story that as we were hearing Dagoberto talk about. So yeah, it's been really important for me.
Fantastic. And when we get through talking to folks with this initial insight, we're going to go back to you to read for us, por favorcito, in just a little bit. And Joe Royce Boytel, of course, been great to convene with you on the show. What does it mean to be in Huizache?
I think it was evident from the first issue how really unique and special it was. Again, that heft, we're talking about just that the beauty of falling in love with something you can hold, that it becomes this permanent marker, right? This permanent kind of this evidence for the diversity of our voices. So from the beginning, I wanted to be in, like there was no doubt. And I think I had to just get to a point where I was like, okay, now I could deserve to be in there, and so it kind of helped me to hone my craft in a way. That was something that I looked forward to when I picked up issues. It's special. I mean, I think that's evident when you pick up a copy. It's special.
I agree with you too. It's great to see the different nuanced pieces, the legacy writers, the new writers, and folks that you wouldn't expect to be in the Chicano Journal appearing in there as well. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Vincent, always great to hang out with you. Great that you'll be joining us at the Latino Bookstore. Again, you were there for a special focus on Mouthfeel Press, ¿verdad? Yes, hace un tiempecito. Thank you so much for joining us for this. What does it mean to you to be a part of the Huizache familia?
There's nothing like it anywhere else in the world. With Huizache, it's probably my most treasured publication.
Wow.
I really wanted to, this was young. This was early on. This was 2015, 2016. And I had just started publishing. And then to get that acceptance from Dagoberto was everything. And his encouragement, his support, throughout the years has really, helped me get through. And for me, it's a big deal to say I'm published with Sandra Cisneros, with you all, with Yahaira, with everybody here, with Maceo, with every major, Chicano, Latinx, anybody that's in it is in all these. And the artwork is also amazing. These books are like a treasure, really. I've bought copies just to gift to people because it's huge, it's important, and it's meant everything for me.
Roberto, with all these wonderful things being said, how in the world can it happen that Texas couldn't handle Huizache? You did a great piece in the Texas Observer chronicling some of that, and you're also a contributor to it. It was actually also great to hang out with you during the tour for Hecho en Texas. Why don't you summarize a little bit about your piece and And what I love about your piece is it reminds us that it can all go away. It can all go away. What are your thoughts, Roberto?
And so when it was, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So when it was in jeopardy, it seemed kind of natural. It seemed really tragic, but it seemed kind of natural. And then to see that it was able to survive in the interesting way that it has, made it kind of triumphant and self-evident, you know, to everybody that was a contributor, how special and how rare that whole thing was. I kind of stand by the fact that I always thought it was ironic, you know, you call it Huizache, it's supposed to grow, you know, here, and then it's got to be surviving as a transplant. I think that tells you everything, really. And it also kind of shows, in a way, how much dreaming goes into this and how much faith behind it all. Because really, yeah, those issues were amazing. And I was in there. I never thought, and I still don't think, like, if I send something out or whatever, I don't expect to be in there. It's not like a necessary given to me that I'm going to be in future issues. It's just one of these magazines that it is a really special situation. It's an interesting dialogue between old and new and stuff that isn't around anymore and stuff that hasn't happened yet. And so to be there is all part of this this pageant that's just going by. So yeah, I didn't think anything about it. Like when it was really threatened, I was like, well, shit, I didn't think it was going to be around at all. But to see how it's going like this, I'm really proud that I'm in there. Every story that I had in my last collection was published somewhere, and they're good places. It's like 3 Penny Review, Santa Monica Review. I would have felt really, really embarrassed, personally embarrassed, if I couldn't get something into Huizache for that first collection of mine. I would have felt like, well, what's wrong with me, you know? So, and honestly, you know, I think other people would have, you know, if they told me, hey, what's going on with you? I don't know. I guess I'm not, you know, and it really, you can't say it's like a literary standard. It's a special something, you know, it's a something that, you know, really there's not enough room for all the people that should be going into Huizache. And I wish that we could figure out a way that you guys could make it into like a publishing house. You know, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to in the future with you guys. But yeah, so anyway, I don't know if I really answered any of that, but yeah, it's rare and vulnerable. Yeah. So
no, you did. And I think Maceo's scared because now he won't. Will you sleep 3 hours now, Maceo? I mean,
yeah, no, it is. It's a lot of work. You know, and Dago, he put a lot of faith in me, and you know, I honor that. At the same time, I feel the weight, I feel the responsibility. And, you know, I think at some point he said, you know, I'm happy, but I'm sorry, you know, because he knows what he placed on my shoulders. But, you know, I was talking to an old artist friend of mine, and he has since become a businessman. And he says that owning a business is kind of like being an artist. You have this vision and you have to execute it. And I almost felt like that being an editor of a magazine is the same way. You have this vision and you have to figure out a way, all these creative ways of making it happen, all these, you know, juggling, bringing on people on board, sharing the responsibility, and really just kind of dreaming and hoping that dream will see you through and that an issue will emerge on the other side. But yeah, you can only do that if you start with that dream. And it really began with Dagoberto in 2011 when he decided, I'm going to start Huizache.
And on that note, let's hear some of the literatura in the journal. And we're going to have Yahira Salvatierra. She's going to read. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in, here's the other familias you're in, Poetry Magazine, The Nation, and Rattle. Her collection, Sons of Salt, is forthcoming with BOA editions in 2024. Hopefully we get you through Texas to celebrate that. She's a community organizer. That's what's up for the San Francisco International Flor y Canto Literary Festival and a contributing editor for Huizache. She's here from Oakland, out there in Califas, where you're dedicated educator to historically marginalized and resilient communities. That is what's up. Thank you for joining us, hermana, and please let it flow.
Yeah, thank you for having me and inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. And the poem that one of the poems I'm going to read is connected to the poem that was published in the last Huizache, which is looking at sons. So like what happens to our sons in this country, how like my parents were immigrants, and I was born then. I think of my sons, how this country continues to do something to our sons, to all of us, but to our sons. That's what, because I have two sons, or to our young men. Of the color yellow, walls are painted summer yellow, but it is the first day of spring, where night and day are the same length, unlike God's preference of one son's body over another. Walls are painted summer yellow, and it is the first day of spring. We have entered the year of Cali, meaning casa, as in protection, the heart of a mountain. My Mexican mother enters a cathedral as though it were a mountain, like her mother and her mother's mother, who left her body and traveled as smoke down a mountain to find refuge in a church, which was never her home. I don't set foot in a church, unlike my mother or her mother or smoke. One evening in July, when the sky began to orange, I woke up next to the man I loved and housed with my body. He said I must have been born under the sign of Cali. To protect my sons, my mother grips their wrists, drags them up the steps of Our Lady of Angels Church, and stands them in front of the holy water stoop, the size of a man's body. She pours salt in the large bowl. With her arm, she stirs the water mix, cups water in her hands, and has my sons drink until salt seeps out of their pores to cover their skin and keep their shadows like smoke from escaping. The last poem that I want to share is actually a poem from work that I'm translating by a Peruvian poet, Ana Varela Tofer, who is from the Amazon of Peru. She's a published poet in Peru. I've been working with her for a while now, and just think it's really important work. She's actually been published in Huizache also. I think it was 2 issues ago. But it's important work because she's talking about the Amazon, and it's just marvelous and important and urgent. Deluge. The world floods on this shore. My house, my garden, an endless street. My room is covered with uncertainty, and my boots made in China are salvaged. Everything overflows in this unexpected sea. Water here and there, high cost of living. The surprise grows in seconds. The rain's economy imposes itself everywhere. In each raindrop that waits to be multiplied, in each sound of unannounced clouds, everything in my body accustomed to floating is shipwrecked, and I sail timelessly balanced in the moment. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. We look forward to having you back on, and we look forward to having you in Texas at some point. So, ojalá.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And next up, we want to bring Joe Reyes Boitel, who, of course, is a Tejana. And I want to tell folks that you are a poet, playwright, and scholar, queer mixed Latinx, and parent, now working on their MFA in creative writing at the University of Texas in El Rio Grande Valle, where they serve as a teaching assistant. Their publication includes Michael and Josephine from Flowersong Press, one of our dear friends from Flowersong Press, and the chapbook Mouth by Niam Henlock. Playing with Fire, their book of poetry centered on their upbringing, is forthcoming from Next Page Press this November. She Wears Bells, the hybrid opera, was chosen as a finalist for Guerrilla Opera's 2022 annual virtual festival. So thank you so much for being back on the show and for sharing some of your work. Let it
so much,
flow.
Tony. I really appreciate it. I would be in trouble if I didn't give a shout out to the Valley. We had really wonderful representation in Huizache, including Emmy and Jay and Rodney Gomez. And so I need to say thank you to and hello to all of them and to everyone else. There are a lot of really wonderful poets in the Valley. So the first piece I'm going to read is called Flint, and it's in Huizache. My brother arrives at my work, leading me to translate his rough hands and angular jaw for the hesitant watching behind cubicle walls. Gone are his youthful round eyes and sleepy pout, his skin now ashy, weathered, his chin losing its edge, reddened skin tied tight, straw-stuffed body waiting for a light. Age has loosened his secrets. Fear has built its nest within him. He borders on homelessness. Just in case, dark clothes to hide and protect his body, 2 pair of shorts, 2 pair of socks, a button down, and a t-shirt worn in layers on a hot August day. He's just come out of jail and needs to make a call. No message really, just a thanks to Mike or John or whoever else bailed him out this time. This part isn't new. He's always thankful. I offer coffee, give my lunch to his blind hand. The shape of our childhood has worn on him. He bears the brunt of our anger and can't reconcile it within. Our stories are unraveling. We break, consider ourselves lucky to have managed a life. His metallic eyes roam the landscape within. That softness is quivering, and he cries without breath. I have denied myself this hurt. Like a firefly, I am pinned to his dark shirt. I did not expect to write about my brother, but here's a second piece also in Huizache. My brother, the pragmatist. My brother folds his shirts neat, stacks them in the back seat, every button of every shirt lined up, one atop the other. His shoes are practical, taken from roofing work to nighttime gatherings around the fire pit with friends. My brother asks my mom to hold his money. She doesn't offer interest, and holding comes with a lecture, but he trusts her more than banks. My brother rents apartments in our parents' names, knowing they will take care of the yellowed kitchen walls and small fire damage in the bathroom. My brother works on his car most afternoons. He's decided to remove the gas tank since he won't have gas money for another week. He may as well keep up his skills. My brother is looking for a new car. It's nice to go for a ride with the windows down. His revoked license and stolen plates are reminders to take advantage of the day. My brother welcomes another child. He refuses condoms because he doesn't want to remove his girlfriend's right to choose. My brother is in love with his girlfriend. If they break up for a day or two, he finds another girl while they are no longer in love. It is what it is, he says. My brother is the pretty one. He always was.
And we're looking forward to joining you as part of the Texas Author Series at the Latino Bookstore at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. So we're looking forward to getting a chance to get you to sign a copy of Huizache for us. Gracias.
Thank you.
And speaking of San Antonio, you've got the shortest ride to the Latino bookstore, mano. And Vincent Cooper's author of Where the Reckless Ones Come to Die from Aztlan Libre Press, based in también San Anto. 2014, Zarzamora, Poetry of Survival from Jade Publishing. 2019, and forthcoming, Infidelis from Mouthfeel Press. Oh yeah, you're hitting all the Texas the big shots. I love it. Fall of 2023. Cooper's poems can be found in Huizache 6, Huizache 8, Riversedge Journal, Somos En Escrito, Dryland Lit, co-editor of Good Cop, Bad Cop Anthology, Flowersong Press 2021. He's also a member of the Macondo Writers Workshop. Shout out to the Macondo Familia, selected in 2015. And former United States Marine, currently living on the south side of San Antonio. Take it away, hermano.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dago. I love you if you're still there. This is called The Gimmick. It was in Huizache 8. Epigraph. Our country won't go on forever if we stay as soft as we are now. There won't be any America because some foreign soldiery will invade us, take our women, and breed a hardier race. Lieutenant General Chesty Puller, United States Marine Corps. Chicano brothers and sisters, I want you. Take back what is ours. This land is your land. This land is Aztlan. Daddy wears Marine Corps gear, red and gold pride, semper fi, do or die. He wants you to be a man. Get a GI Bill. Make your time worth it. Get all the benefits. Try not to get married. Don't have kids. Just live it up. Look sharp. Uniform starched. Sharp creases. Stiff walk. Clack the heels from your spit shine Cadillacs. In the Marines, they tell you we're all green for equality. We fight for honor. We die for freedom. So Americans can watch American Idol with a Budweiser on the arm of their couches. Children glued to iPad apps, MAGA 2.0. Later, you'll hear your brown Marine brother is being deported. You'll vouch for him, telling Facebook that he is a hero. Our government says, thank you for being a frontline bullet catcher. Now go back to Mexico. Your son who followed in your footsteps says it's a thankless job. I should have chased that woman I loved, or the job in LA that I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent, and really looking forward to hanging out with you at the Latino bookstore. And thanks for all you do, and really enjoy listening to your work. Gracias. And we're going to bring Roberto back on. Roberto, you said you didn't want to read from the piece, but maybe you want to talk.
Well, I wouldn't mind, except for I think just kind of talking it out directly is better, you know. So any questions about that, and then I could elaborate on something, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like what you said too, in that you mentioned in the piece, and we've chatted about it. You had kind of misgivings about, well, how will the definition of or identity term of Chicanidad be applied?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about this specifically because, see, I had a friend, and I talked to her still almost every day, and I was thinking about a poem she wrote back when we were, you know, in McAllen, like 19 years old or something. She wrote a poem called "Where Latinos Sing and Dance," and it was a poem that she wrote at the Mac newsstand down here. And basically, it's kind of funny because I never really even paid attention to it until like even just the other day or today I was looking at it. And it had been published in a little place that was not a Chicano or Latino magazine. You know, she was trying to be a poet back then, and it was published immediately. And she never kind of pursued that, but there wasn't a place for it, you know? Right. She just wrote that. And basically it was her experience of kind of having the desire to create. And then we were sitting in a place where everybody spoke Spanish, and we kind of didn't really speak Spanish. And she was looking up at the TV, and we were in an air-conditioned place. Or I wasn't there when she wrote it, but I was always around with her, and I could feel that when it was so weird because it was like a poem that could have probably been in Huizache, but Huizache wasn't around. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's a hard thing to describe. My own work, I don't know how to describe it. I know that I'm Latino, so whatever I write, it's going to be Latino. That's my out. I just think that's how it goes. So it kind of doesn't, you know, at the same time, you know, I also feel like if I read something, I'm going to interpret it in those ways. And, you know, I don't naturally speak, most of us, I don't think, speak Spanish all the time. You know, I can understand it very well, but I almost never speak it. My grandmother would speak to me in Spanish, and I would speak to her in English, and that's just how we talked. And that was just how that went. That was kind of my education there. I mean, I never really got into. So it's weird. This whole situation about it gets kind of complicated for me in that, like, the people. Well, originally Dago had. I'm kind of talking about everything right now, but Dago had this really cool workshop that I was lucky to be part of. Kind of when I first met him. And by the way, the guy that introduced me to Dago's work was a white kid that I grew up with named Ben Meadows, and he was my best friend. He loved Dago's work. I didn't read Dago. He loved Dago's work. He showed me Dago's work. He went to Dago's reading in Austin where there was only one guy there, Ben, and me standing behind him. Ben got his book signed. It was for the Mickey Acuna book. I read Dago after all that. So my introduction to Dago was a white kid. You know, he didn't think of it as Chicano literature. He just wanted to be a writer, thought he was a cool writer. So it's complicated like that. So when I got to know Dago, and he was, you know, kind enough to invite me and Oscar Cazares and Christy Granados to this illegal, undocumented workshop that he had like in his garage apartment. That's what he called it, right? It's a cool name, and it was a really fun time. We had nothing in common. Our writing had nothing in common. I mean, we couldn't even tan the same. We have zero in common. I was writing these William Burroughs type Jean Genet pastiches that look like if Hemingway decided to take a nap on Bret Easton Ellis or something, right? That's kind of what it looked like at the time. And I was having a good time. Christine was writing these very, very, I almost think that they were like necessary explanations about what it was like to have like some apostolic situation going on wherever she was a kid. And, you know, Oscar, you know, he's Mr. Adman, you know, he knows how to, you know, put the stuff together. So he was taking notes the whole way. We were all learning. It was just very different work is what I mean to say about that. You kind of disappeared, but I wonder if they can still hear me.
Oh, yes, we can definitely still hear you.
So
yes,
what that kind of told me right away, and we didn't have a damn thing in common, and it was hard to yoke us together. What I like about what the Huizache project is that I don't have to do what everybody's doing. Like I can't do what you're doing. I can't do the kind of I couldn't put together that activist tome that you put together recently. I couldn't do that, and I would fail at it. And I don't even have to try now. You know, you can do that, and that's what's cool about it. When I look at Huizache, I see, you know, the great poetry I just heard. I can't write it, and I don't even have to try to write it. And that's the cool thing about it, that I can see that it's there. One of my favorite Latino writers is Domingo Martinez. I love his work. He's amazing to me, his memoir. But one of the reasons why I like it so much is because I don't have to do it now. Like I don't have to write about the Valley in that way that he did. I don't have to do the Boy Kings of Texas, or even I couldn't do it. For one thing, I wouldn't be able to talk about my family the way he does and not get so much. I don't even talk to my family, but I couldn't do it. And I think he still has a relationship with this. So I don't know, but it's just not an option for me. And it doesn't have to be. And it's exciting that all that can exist and I don't have to do it. So that's another thing that's very freeing about that kind of, it's not a genre. It's like an allowance run amok or something. Yeah.
I like that. It's our terms on our terms. And I should tell folks too that you are an artist, fiction writer, and literary critic. Some of your works appeared in, and these are all major, you know, publications: Three Penny Review, Santa Monica Review, the Believer, the Baffler, and your collections of stories. The Fight for Space is published by Stephen F. Austin University Press. I'm going to bring everybody back on as we say goodbye. But I think that's a great note to end on, in that you know, it seems that everybody's contributing to this new definition of what it means to be Chicano. Maceo, why don't you close us out? Is this kind of what you were expecting, and is this kind of what you want people to experience in person at the Latino bookstore when they pick up Huizache for themselves?
Absolutely. Just the range of voices. You know, you felt the gravitas in each of their readings, how different they were. And then those who get to experience it in person, and also hold the book in their hands, and to really feel that Huizache is a work of art. And as Roberto mentioned, you know, just the work you find within kind of frees up you know, those other voices that are kind of pushing the definition of Chicanx, Latinx literature.
Fantastic. And as I thank the folks that are helping us today, I'm going to give Dagoberto fair warning. I want to bring him back on. I don't know if he's ready, but I'm going to, yes, I think he's saying he is. Hey, Dagoberto, I think you were saying no. So we brought you back on against your will, Dagoberto. Hey, give us some parting words of wisdom. Oh, can't hear you yet, Dagoberto. Hit the volume. We lost it. Well, we see your Huizache though. I do want to thank our. Ahí está.
Oh, I'm here. I'm there.
I hear you, Dago. I put you on the spot. You said you just wanted to listen. I couldn't resist, so I dragged you back in. Give us some parting words on this new evolution of Huizache.
Oh my God! You always ask me these questions that are so big that I'm supposed to go like om. Oh, I don't know what they say in Mexico here. Lakers? No. What? No, really. I'm really happy. What a pleasure to hear everybody's vision, which includes mine. It's sort of like, wow, I did. Everybody's right about it. I did have a vision of, no, we aren't this, we aren't that, we aren't this. We're all of those. And it's sort of nice I see us, I don't like to say country, but a culture that is ignored. And look at this. Look at what they're ignoring. It's beautiful. Thank you guys for every good thing you thought and said and will say, and makes me feel good as I live sort of in exile in, Mexico. Like, I don't want any more Tejas anything.
Sorry, we need you back though at some point. Hey, thank you for tuning in, everybody. I'm Tony Diaz, the Libre Traficante. I want to give a shout out to our crew. Roxana Guzman is our multi-platform producer. Rodrigo Bravo is our audio producer. And of course, I want to thank all the listeners on KPFT 90.1 FM, Houston's community station, our first platform. Of course, we come to you live and in person. So this is part of Nuestra Palabra's 25th anniversary season. And if you are tuning in and you can make a donation in the name of Nuestra Palabra to KPFT, please do. And you can go to kpft.org as well as call 713-526-5738. Look forward to seeing all of you at the Latino bookstore. And thank you for all that you do. Gracias. Ciao.